Good morning. You're listening to Central Wisconsin's 24-hour information station, AM 1320 WFHR. It's time now for the Morning Magazine, brought to you by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing. Now, with the Morning Magazine, here's Carl Hilke.
Thank you, Jerry, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's show on AM 1320 and streaming live at WFHR.com. We also welcome our friends from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. Why? Because Wood County Board Chairman Lance Pliml is here, and this time, Lance, we got to look good for the camera. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Carl. That's right. We didn't have them here last time.
Yeah, that's why we made it. We were off the cliff.
In my chair, and
I know. I could have worn, shorts and I could have worn my jammies and slippers, and
they just don't give us enough heads up on it.
I know. No, but we're glad they're here. But it's a lot of things happening, and everybody's talking about what's going on downtown with the old consolidated building, which is now known as the River Block Building, Wood County. So why don't we begin there, because that's the talk of the town. How's the move into the River Block Building going?
It's going well, and it will be called the River Block Building, Wood County. Underneath it, we thought, why spend a lot of money changing signs when we already had a building that everybody was familiar with by that name and obviously associated that way. The project right now is on schedule and it's on budget. And what that means is that beginning early April, we will probably start moving some of our people into that building. The target date for completion is end of April, April 30th, basically May 1st. We should have everybody in that building by that time, completed and ready to go. And it's a substantial move. It's about 200 employees going into that building. And then there's a lot of puzzle pieces because as those departments move out of the courthouse or other facilities, other departments within the courthouse also move. So as part of this project, we're also moving the dispatch center, which was temporarily housed for a couple of years in the basement of the courthouse 12 years ago. So about 10 years after the fact, we're finally getting that system, that department upgraded, new equipment, and that will move in the courthouse. Our IT department, which supports basically every department that we have in the courthouse, is being moved. We'll have additional server capacity there, all of the new latest, greatest technological equipment that Lance doesn't understand real well, but it works.
Where are these two departments moving in within the courthouse?
They're both moving out of what would be the lower level, or in some cases almost the basement, up to the second floor of the courthouse. So if you were real familiar with our courthouse and you were used to walking into the old county clerk's office, generally that's the area that they will occupy. And then part of that across the hall with IT, but some of that you won't be in very often.
Okay. So a lot of moving. What are some of the first departments that are moving into the River Block?
Health, Human Services are the two big ones that are going in there. And there's a lot of construction going on to facilitate that. With the health department, you need, and also Human Services. A lot of that is HIPAA protected information. So you have to have additional quiet space, walls, sinks, facilities in that respect when you're dealing with the health department. Those are the two big ones, and they'll move. Eventually, you'll have other small ancillary departments moving into there, but those are the two big ones. We need to get them moved. The first part of the puzzle really was we moved the county clerk's office from the second floor of the courthouse into the old auditorium. So if you enter the front doors of the courthouse, the clerk, where most of the business is transacted, is immediately on your right. So no need to go upstairs. You don't have to traipse through the halls. You walk into the courthouse, and the county clerk's office is immediately on your right.
Okay. So things will be, when this is completed and the word gets out, there will be a logic to it. Like the River Block Building is supposed to be, for folks dealing with various programs, a one-stop shop.
Yeah, you hit it on the head. Generally speaking, there are exceptions to this rule. All of the constitutional officers remain in the courthouse. The long-range plan. Your courts are there, obviously, district attorney's offices, and then you have the clerk of courts, all of what you call the elected positions, register of deeds, county clerk, county treasurer, all those functions remain in the courthouse. The River Block Building will house those that typically have specific needs through Human Services. Those will all be one-stop shopping there, as well as the health department. And many of those people who use one of those services use both of those services. So it will be much easier for the public to access those in one place at one time without having to travel from, might be the 12th Street facility over to the old annex building that was across the street from the courthouse, and then back up to the third floor of the courthouse. So the hope at the end of the day was that we saved the taxpayer about $25 to $35 million by buying an existing building instead of building something, which was the recommendation originally of the Space Needs Committee and the architects. So we had the opportunity to buy a building at about a tenth of the cost of what it would have been to build one, and then to move everybody into a single facility so the public has better access.
And it's good for the city because we got 200 some people that are going to be on their lunch breaks looking for a place to have lunch or shopping there or just walk. I mean, it's going to add vibrancy to the downtown.
It will. It's going to bring all of our employees down there to a central location, and then they serve, if we take all those departments, you probably have about another 200 people plus a day just walking in the door for service of various types. So you also have the customer, the citizen, the resident, the taxpayer downtown, which will help. And then part of that was the trade that we did for the old annex building and the city parking lot across from the Elks, which also facilitates the triangle development downtown. And I know you've heard it on other shows and other places, and you may have read it, but we have a severe housing inventory shortage in Wisconsin Rapids, and especially if somebody's looking for, a more downtown location, newer housing. So as we facilitated that trade, I think it's going to help that triangle development move forward. We should see some build out down there, and that'll be, new retail, commercial with at least the initial plans with some housing above that. So I think the whole city's moving forward. Things should look good.
Yeah, and it means it's going to be busy, and folks are going to have to be maybe a little patient as they traverse the city and get used to the additional traffic and or detours around construction projects and the like.
Yeah, there's a lot of good things happening down here. We're seeing a lot of economic development that we hadn't in the past, but that wasn't just indicative to Southwood County. I mean, there were pockets around the country that had benefited over the last 10 years, but consumer confidence is way up. We're seeing development of new subdivisions in the Grand Rapids area. We're seeing additional building permits pulled, sanitary permits. We have the building going on in the city. We have a much more diversified economy than we had back, 10 years ago, 12 years ago. Love to have all of them, running at 100% capacity and really going. But what we really have, a shortage of housing. We have, in effect, a surplus of skilled jobs that we cannot fill. So the technical colleges have worked hard with us, especially mid-state, to try to provide those skills for people. We want to make it so that the high school graduate who then, whether they go to the technical college, whether they go into an apprenticeship program or college, want to return to Wisconsin Rapids and work here because, number one, the first thing everybody asks for around the country is a safe community in which to reside and raise children. And we have that here. They want affordable housing. We have that here in spades. And so we really should be way ahead of the curve as we move forward.
As we're moving forward, it's budget time in Madison, and I know our state legislative delegation has been going around the district getting people's inputs on the governor's proposed budget at various listening sessions. Your take on what Governor Walker has proposed for the state in the next biennium?
Well, for those of you who have listened to the show before, I also sit on the executive board of the Wisconsin Counties Association, so we're briefed fairly regularly. In fact, I had a briefing on the governor's budget shortly before he presented the budget that evening. The budget is extremely friendly to counties this year. There are areas that have taken cuts in the state, but from a county's perspective, it's been a very good budget. And we are an administrative arm of state government, so you would think that if anybody's going to share in some additional spending, we might be the place that it's shared. But we'll see additional dollars going to highway maintenance. We will see additional dollars going into our human service arenas, whether that be mental health, child support, anything that has to do with human services. Those dollars are up. And then, although we don't deal with it, we're seeing additional dollars proposed in the governor's budget for education. So all of the things that, although we don't deal directly with the education aspect, it obviously impacts everything else we do. We're seeing significant increase in spending on those areas that we deal with. For instance, about an 11% increase in the highway funding that we have coming in, and additional dollars everywhere else. So, we're always dealing with mandates, those things that we have to provide that we have no control over. And to give you an example, pick your number. Our budget is somewhere between 110 and 120 million most years. Only about 20 to 25 million of that is discretionary spending. In other words, property tax levy, some user fees and things like that we can use to run programs that are specifically beneficial to Wood County. All of the rest of those dollars are passed through federal and state dollars that are spent on mandated programs.
If you're just joining us on the Morning Magazine, welcome. We're getting our monthly update from Wood County Board Chairman Lance Pliml. You mentioned it was good in terms of transportation. The big debate about the budget will be transportation, and I know you and I have talked about this for a long time. What's going to happen? I mean, we're still looking for a long-term solution to our needs, and what does it? And given the increase, what does it mean for completing the projects that Wood County has identified that they wanted to get done and did the borrowing for?
Well, it'll help us, and we have borrowed a significant amount of money to bring our roads up to standards. And the reason for that is when we take a 20, 30-year look at it, it's cheaper to fix them now than to try to replace them entirely later, significantly cheaper. The governor's budget calls for a pullback in some of the major projects in the southeast portion of the state and more money designated to highway maintenance of those roads around the state. So we will benefit from that to some extent. Now, there's never enough, and the Local Government Institute, which is a think tank put together involving the Towns Association, the League of Municipalities, the Counties Association, put together a report a couple of years ago called Filling Potholes. And there's also been other pushes in the state to fix the immediate needs in highways and bridges. And our state is in really poor shape right now. In fact, somebody made the comment to me, and you think back 20 years ago, you heard just the opposite. But somebody said to me the other day, you can tell immediately when you enter Illinois. And it used to be the other way around. You entered Illinois, the roads were terrible. You got to Wisconsin, they were good. Not the case anymore. I'm sure as you travel around the state, there's some roads you drive down and you go, I'm going to lose part of my suspension. Yeah, I'm certainly going to bend a rim. I may lose a tire. And one of those is just driving, if you're coming from the north into Milwaukee on 41. I mean, as soon as you hit that area, you go, we're in trouble. So we need to fix those. And the Filling Potholes report identified about 14 ways that the state could make up that budget deficit. And there's not going to be a single way in which we're going to solve that problem. It's going to take a combination of a number of those efforts, I think, to solve the long-term structural deficit. One of those is open road tolling. Which makes absolute sense because you're garnering dollars from people who travel through the state who don't live here, so it isn't entirely on the back of the Wisconsin taxpayer. You should see indexing of the gas tax again. I'm guessing that's going to happen. You might see a VMT tax or vehicle miles traveled tax, where in effect, that would punish the rural resident more because you drive farther to things. But there's a way to exempt the first maybe 10,000 miles or 20,000 miles from that. It's going to be a multi-pronged attack to solve the problem at the end of the day. It's a huge problem. It's a $1 billion problem, and it's going to take a lot of different facets to pull that all together.
And then we have the audit showing that some of these projects were
way over budget.
Way over budget, and that gets taxpayers. Well, now you want more money, and you haven't been spending prudently what we gave you already. So
yeah, and that is true, and we certainly need to find efficiencies in all of those. Part of that happens though. They do they budget something that they look at the appropriation 15 years ago when they proposed doing that highway. And then all of a sudden now they're ready to go to construction, and years have passed. Yeah, and the numbers are totally inadequate to do the project. But obviously, the more local control you have, the closer the supervision is of the project, the more efficiently you usually get it done. So regionalization typically helps, but there's some point in that where you don't have enough local supervision to come up with the best way to do things. And they've dealt with that in the state. Some of that's prevailing wage. Some of that is trading offsetting federal highway dollars with state highway dollars on certain projects, so we have better control. We can do them more effectively and efficiently. It's the, however you want to, the 10,000 pound, the million pound gorilla in the room right now, but it's something they got to get their arms around.
We're entering the spring summer season, and of course, Wood County is blessed with a number of parks, beautiful camping facilities. Powers Bluff is there's a talk about the long-range plan for Powers Bluff.
10, 15 years ago, we probably started on that project. We worked with the Friends of Powers Bluff group, the county itself, different environmental groups, the different Native American tribes that were involved, with in some cases burial grounds up there, or what they considered sacred lands. We put together a plan a number of years ago, a long-range plan on how that eventually would develop. And then the big hurdle always comes is dollars. There's that wish list, but you can't do it. In the meantime, we were able to acquire some additional property that adjoined that land, which allows us to maybe do some expansion into areas that won't disrupt or bother anybody else up and around our ski hill area. At the end of the day, with I think a public-private partnership, you'll see additional development out there. Again, a tremendous facility. And then you couple that with the camping we have at North Park, out at Lake Dexter, at Southwood County Park at Lake Wazeecha. You've seen the facilities that we probably have at Lake Nepco, and then the development around that, which is not a county development, but obviously that adds tax base to the county, allows us to do other things with those parks.
Should mention, if you're interested in the whole Powers Bluff development project, there's a meeting tonight, March 22nd, starting at 7 at the Powers Bluff County Park Shelter Building at 6990 Bluff Drive in Arpin. There will be a presentation on the project as well as information about the Friends of Powers Bluff. So you're asking for the public to get involved.
Yeah, we are. And at the end of the day, if I go back years and years, we have a somewhat historic shelter at the top of the hill there. As they look at expansion, that would probably occur down at the bottom of the tubing hills, to give you some reference. That was the old Grabowski farm. It was a facilitated land trade with the county, with some other property that we weren't using for property that we might use. We didn't acquire additional property. It was a trade. And if we did new development, it would occur in that area. And then maybe, I'm going out on a limb here a little bit, but maybe the old ski chalet and facility at the top would be used for more historic purposes, maybe a museum, to some extent, or a nature center. And then as we develop additional facilities for the skiing and tubing hills, that would probably occur at the bottom. At least that was the original plan.
I was just thinking, if you're going to have like a historical center, you could work that out with maybe the Ho-Chunk or the Native American tribes in that area, and have a area about their culture, the history of that culture in that area, and then people can realize the historic significance of that whole region.
We see environmental tourism.
People love that.
Yeah, we see environmental tourism. We see archaeological tourism.
Right.
And one
historical
of the things,
tourism.
historical tourism. And one of the things that we have in the state, to extent that many others don't, is just a tremendous amount of history, beauty, and public land set aside. And so we are, as ripe as you can be for additional tourism dollars coming into our area. It's a huge part of our economy. It's something that we're banking on going forward. It doesn't take a tremendous amount of infrastructure to be able to garner those dollars. Those people tend to come, they spend money in our facilities, and then they leave town. You don't need additional, right off the bat, recreational facilities and other traditional build-outs. So it's dollars that truly end up going right to the bottom line.
Well, people don't like to travel too long. You can argue, hey, come up to central Wisconsin, save 2 hours on your trip, and we're less expensive than some other locations. Well, last night the Common Council approved the rafters plans for the stadium at Witter Field, video board coming in, additional box seats, and that facility is being upgraded into. Plus, there's going to be a field restoration starting with this fall. They're going to basically build a new field in there. So we're talking about recreational facilities all around the county that should make us very attractive to families wanting to come up and not spend a lot of money but have fun.
And that's where it starts. And then when they are attracted to this area and they have fun here, they start to think about locating their businesses here. And as we have additional broadband build out and capability, we have people who can work from home and they desire to work in an area that they like to play.
Right.
So, it's beneficial to everybody. And we have, like I said, just a large amount of surface water for recreation areas. You use the river, Petenwell, Castle Rock, Wazeecha, Depot, Buren. And not all those are directly in our county, but those lines were drawn years ago arbitrarily. We're seeing expansion at the hospital, which is going to be huge for our area. We're seeing the development of the Sand Valley Golf Course, which is going to be an economic engine that I don't think people can even get their arms around at this point.
They're getting ready. They're in serious discussion. I don't think people understand the amount of jet traffic they're going to see at Alexander Field this summer.
They're talking build up 400 to 500 jobs, at that facility. And if it comes anywhere near to approaching, what was developed in Kohler, the fallout from that, the overflow, the additional housing, restaurants, you name it, is going to be phenomenal. And at their other facility in Bandon Dunes, they said that development has continued for 15, 17 years. So, people think there's a golf course. Well, it's much more than that. And I think that great strides have been made by those people who have really worked hard to bring economic development to our area. The most frustrating thing for me was brought to my attention yesterday by a young adult who has relocated to our area. And he made the comment to me, he goes, people do not appreciate this area when they grow up here until they leave and go somewhere else and work for 5 to 10 years and then come back. And he said, we oftentimes in Rapids see the river as an inconvenience. You got to go to a bridge, you got to get over it. Every person I bring to town talks about the beauty of the river, how spectacular it is. The other facilities we have here, and he said they just don't appreciate that. He said, so, maybe everybody should be forced to leave for 5 years before they come back and complain there isn't anything to do.
Or become a tourist in your hometown.
There you go.
We say that when we on this program when we're visiting with our friends from the Wisconsin Rapids Area Convention and Visitors Bureau during Visit Wisconsin Rapids. Visit Wisconsin Rapids. Become a tourist in your hometown and see what's going on here. Get your head out of the sand.
Yeah, I get so tired of hearing there's nothing to do because I get a list every day of things that they ask, for instance, for me to attend. There's no way in the world I can attend even half of what's going on.
For our TV viewers, this is our community calendar folder. Yeah, you will notice it's pretty darn full.
It's everything from sports to general recreation to theater. You name it, it's here if you want to participate. Or and I hear same people who live in other areas, metropolitan areas, say there's nothing to do here either. So
come up here.
I think it's you're not aware what's available in your backyard, as Carl just said, till you explore that opportunity.
Okay, well, you can explore Powers Bluff tonight, folks. Again, the meeting on the future development of Powers Bluff is happening at 7 at the Powers Bluff County Park Shelter Building, 6990 Bluff Drive. You heard Lance. They'd love your input.
Love to see you up there.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you, sir. It was a good update, and happy moving to everybody involved with moving into the river block.
Thanks, Carl. Appreciate it.
Take care. And that's Lance Pliml, Wood County Board Chairman, and that's going to wrap up part one of today's edition of the Morning Magazine on AM 1320 and WFHR.com. We also thank our friends from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. The Morning Magazine, as always, is brought to you by Comfort Air.